Hello there my friends, hope you all are having a fantastic day right now. In this video, we shall be looking at exception handling in Python and how it works. I understand that this video should have been made earlier, but for some reason I completely forgot about it. And last week I suddenly remembered about this, so here it is. So let's get started. So let's first talk about the try except block in Python. Try and except are two keywords in Python which are used together, and the except keyword is used to detect any exception or error and execute some statements based on that error. And the try keyword is used to execute a set of statements if there are no errors thrown. So that's how they work. So let's first write try and a colon like that. And this is the syntax. And as usual, we have the indentation space to indicate that these set of statements are under the try block. So let's take an input from the user, enter any number. And I'm going to keep this example as simple as possible. So when the user enters any number, we want to store that number in A. And let's also convert this number to an integer. So this statement is a part of our try block. And if this statement throws an error, which means the input cannot be converted into an integer, then an exception would be thrown. And we do not want the user to look at the exception generated by Python because that would be really ugly. So we would want to handle that exception. And here the except block comes to our rescue. So except and a set of statements under except. So suppose we get an error in this statement, then the statements under except are executed. So under except, let's print a nice message saying that the input is invalid and the user should try a different input. So the input is invalid, something like that. And this is a clean way of letting the user know that what they are entering is not the correct thing. And let's run this. So let's enter some number. So there is no error because this number can be converted into an integer. But if we enter a string, something like this word, then the input is invalid. And otherwise, you would have got the error message in red, which is generated by Python, and that is not the right way of letting the user know. And this is a really clean way of doing it. And that's how try except works. And with try except, we can use a keyword called finally. And what finally does is it executes a set of statements just like try and except, and this set of statements are executed regardless of whether an exception is raised or not. And let's include a print statement under this. So print the program was executed successfully, something like that. This will be executed regardless of whether an exception was detected or not. So let's give a string. So you see this statement is executed, and if you give a number, then this message will still be printed. So that's how finally works. And another keyword which you can use with the try except block is the else keyword. And else does the same job that it does with an if statement or a for loop or anything. So if there is no exception raised, then the statements under else get executed. Otherwise, they are not executed. So that's how else works. And we'll print a small message here saying no exception encountered. So let's run this. Let's give an integer. So no exception was encountered. And if you give a string, then you see the no exception encountered message is not being printed. So that's how else works. And another thing that I wanted to talk in this video was how you can handle certain exceptions. So let's say you don't want to handle all exceptions, but only a particular exception, like say value error. And what this does is it only handles the value error exception, and if any other exception is detected, then it just moves on. So let's test this. So the except block has been activated. Let's say instead of value error we have name error, and in such a case we get an error, and that is because the exception which is thrown when we give a string as an input is value error and not name error. That's how we can handle specific expressions. And you could have multiple errors in a single except statement, like you could also have value error, and make sure you enclose it within the brackets, and that would do the same thing. And you could have multiple except statements, like you could have a separate except for handling keyboard interrupts, say print something like that, and you could just go on with the number of except statements. So keyboard interrupt. So that's how the try except block works. And the last thing that I would like to talk about in this video is how to raise exceptions. Now let's consider an example. Before that, let me get rid of all of this. So let's just have the try block. Now let's say we don't want the input to be a negative integer, and let's have an if statement for that. So if a less than 0, which means it's a negative integer, then we can raise the error we want. So let's say we want to raise a value error, and that is the keyword. So this would raise a value error. And if a value error is raised, it would again go to the default red colored error message of Python, which is again ugly. So we will handle that using an except block. Value error, and again whatever statements you want, something like that. And let's run this. So let me give a negative integer like -11. So you see bad input because value error was raised. So that's how we can handle errors or exceptions in Python. And that's it for the video, guys. Hope you guys were able to learn something from this video. And bye for now, and I'll see you guys in the next video.